a king or head of state and his councils. It also discusses how these leaders need to act in order to achieve success for the nation and its people. Duties of a king or the head of state. Brahmam praktena samskaram kshatriyena yatha vidhi sarvasyasya yatha nyayam kartavyam parirakshanam. The king, being a Kshatriya, after acquiring perfect knowledge, culture, and piety, as those in a Brahman, needs to constitutionally govern the country with flawless justice. Once there was a king named King Vikramaditya. He was known around the world as a very good justice giver. One example of his justice is, once two women came to King Vikramaditya with a child. They both said that the child was theirs. People these days would have taken DNA samples or tried to find evidence. But King Vikramaditya solved it in 1 minute. He said, since both of you demand that the child is yours, I will cut him in half and give one half to both of you. After saying this, he took out his sword and raised it. Suddenly, one of the women said, please don't cut him in half, give him to the other woman. So that child was given to the woman who was ready to give away her own child. A real mother cannot bear to see her child in pain. That's how King Vikramaditya cleverly did justice. The three councils or assemblies of the nation. Trini Rajana Vidathe Kurumi Pari Vishwani Bhushata Sadansi. The king and the people need to join to form three councils. One should be the Board of Education, the second should be the Board of Religion, and the third should be the Board of Politics. These councils need to then each work for the protection of the interests of the government and the nation, and decorate all the people with knowledge, culture, righteousness, independence, wealth, and happiness. No absolute power for the king. The king, or any individual in the government, does not need to be invested with absolute and unrestricted power. Because with the absolute power, he would impoverish the people, oppress them, and he may eat them up. The authoritarian ruler does not let anyone else grow in power. He robs the rich, seizes their property by unjust punishments, and accomplishes his selfish ends. The king should be the president of the assemblies under him, and him under the assemblies. He and the assemblies both under the people, and the people under the king and the assemblies. This way, everything is divided equally. Election of the king. Per the Vedic political science, the learned leaders and politicians need to confer among themselves and then elevate a person to the position of a king. The same group also needs to be able to remove the king from the post when he is proven unworthy. The selected one needs to be worthiest for the job, capable of subduing enemies, and he needs to have the most excellent qualities, actions, and temperaments. He should be illustrious, reverenced by all, and endued with knowledge. The people should willingly follow his orders. Qualifications of a king or the head of state. The king or the head of state needs to be, like Indra, meaning quick promoter of the wealth like electricity. India's second Prime Minister, Lal Bahadur Shastri, was a very good example of this. Dear to his people's heart as their very bread, Sri Ram used to be dear to his people's heart because he would go between them, hear their troubles, be compassionate, and try to resolve their concerns. Also, King Ugrasen used to be dear to his people. Impartial and just like young, Vikramaditya always used to try his best to listen to even the smallest of issues. Nowadays also, people give examples of his justice. A king should be a disseminator of the light of justice, righteousness, and knowledge, and like the sun, be a dispeller of the darkness of ignorance and injustice. Dharmaraj Yudhishthir used to follow the laws of justice and righteousness. This is why he is called Dharmaraj. A king should be a destroyer of the wicked, like fire. Sri Ram killed the wicked demon king Ravan, and also Sri Krishna killed Jarasandha. A king should be controller of the wicked by various means, like violence. President Obama was a very good example of this when he chased down Osama bin Laden. Delight giver to noble-minded people like the moon. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi goes to noble-minded saints to seek their guidance and makes them happy. So he's a good example. Also, Raja Dushyant, father of Bharat, the person after whom India is named, used to serve sages like Vishwamitra to make them happy by protecting yajnas from devils or rakshasas. So he is also a good example. A king should be a fiddler of the treasury, like the king or the lord of wealth. A king should not have an inferior or superior complex. Lal Bahadur Shastri was once offered many grains by a foreign country, but the foreign country had some conditions which required him to do the wrong things. So he declined. Rather, he gave the motto of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan to make the country self-sufficient and so it could overcome all troubles. Also, a king should not charge too many taxes. Just like a gardener does not pluck a flower off by its roots so that it can still keep regrowing, similarly, a king should charge little taxes so that the people can easily pay and they do not starve. Also, a king should not idly want fame. I have a little story to show an example of a wise king who did not yearn for fame. Once there was a king named King Prajapati. He was devoted to public welfare and he opened his coffers for the public. The public wanted to repay him, so they invited him to a yajna which would give him long life and matchless fame. This was a 21-day yajna. For the first 20 days, the king was there and he performed the yajna. On the 21st day, after 21 offerings, the yajna would have matchless fame and long life. But the king did not appear on the 21st day of the yajna. An informant from the palace told them that the king had gone with his soldiers, so the yajna could not be completed. 4 days later, the king returned. He told the people that the neighboring king had invaded their land and he had to go to drive him away. The people were relieved, but they expressed their regret. Had you not gone away and if you had stayed for only half a day, you would have had matchless fame and long life. The king replied, maybe, but had I stayed, then all of us would be slaves by now. I am not famed, but I am free. My duty is to see that my people live happily and freely, and I have fulfilled my duty. So, the story shows that a king should not go crazy over fame when his kingdom's freedom is at stake. For enforcement of law and order in the state, the king needs to be able to maintain his power and leadership, not act independently, but be in consultation with his wise counsels for all actions in accordance with their advice, support, confidence, and dictates of the laws of morality. There are many examples of good kings from ancient India. Those were scholars, had good character, used to respect scholars and vidwans, were courageous, just, and so on. Ikshvaku, Satyavadi Raja Harishchandra, Maryada Purushottam Shri Ram, Vikramaditya, Samrat Ashok, Chandragupta Maurya, and King Ugrasena. These are only some names worth mentioning.